I used to think I was just a regular woman living a quiet life in Pennsylvania. My husband was a high school teacher. Both our kids were in college, and I worked as an accountant for a small firm. My life, as ordinary as it seemed, gave me no reason to ever question anything. That was until my 40th birthday. A co-worker gave me one of those at-home DNA test kits, just for fun, she said. But when the results came back, I thought it had to be a mistake. I wasn't genetically related to anyone in my family. Not my mom, not my dad, not even my little sister. I sent in another sample. Same result. I panicked. When I brought it up to my mother, hoping for reassurance, she froze. And then she asked me something I'll never forget. "Who told you to do this?" That's when I knew. This wasn't about science. This was about something far deeper, something buried long ago. And me? The woman who carried their name, shared their smiles, lived their memories. I may never have truly belonged to them. After that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept looking at my reflection in the mirror, searching for pieces of myself that no longer made sense. My eyes, my nose, the way I smiled. Suddenly, all of it felt borrowed. A few days later, I pulled out an old photo album from my parents' attic. I needed to see something, anything, that might anchor me back to what I thought was my truth. As I flipped through the pages, I stopped at a photo from the hospital on the day I was born. My mother was in bed, looking exhausted but smiling. My dad stood beside her, proud, and next to them, a nurse, holding me in her arms. There was something odd about her expression. She wasn't smiling. Her eyes weren't on me. They were staring at my mother with something that looked like fear. I'd never noticed it before. And the strangest part, she looked familiar, like I'd seen her in a dream, or maybe even in real life. I took a picture of the photo with my phone and decided I'd ask Mom about it later. That evening, I brought it up casually over coffee. "Hey, Mom, do you remember this nurse from the hospital, the one holding me?" She glanced at the picture and her face drained of color. "Where did you find that?" "In the attic, why?" She reached for the album, tried to close it. "That's just an old photo, honey. The nurse was someone who no longer worked there. Nothing important." But something in her voice cracked. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I pressed her. "You don't think it's strange that she looks so familiar? That she's not smiling?" She snapped. "Why are you digging all this up? Is this about the DNA thing again?" I paused. "Mom, why didn't you just tell me the truth?" She stood up, hands trembling. "Because some truths destroy people, and I wasn't ready to destroy you." She walked out of the room, leaving me sitting there with a photo that had suddenly become radioactive. That night, I stared at that nurse's face on my phone screen. The longer I looked, the more convinced I became that this wasn't just a nurse. This woman, whoever she was, knew something. She wasn't just in the picture. She was part of the story no one wanted to tell me. So I made a decision. I was going to find her. For the next few nights, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The nurse in the photo. Her face haunted me like a forgotten memory trying to resurface. I began to have dreams, vague flashes of a dim hospital room, muffled voices, crying, and always, her face, watching, silent. I knew I had to go back to where it all started. It took a few phone calls, a little digging, and a favor from a friend who worked in health records, but I finally tracked down the hospital where I'd been born, St. Matthew's Medical Center. It was over 2 hours away from where we lived now, in a small rural town where the buildings looked like they hadn't been touched since the 80s. I arrived early on a rainy Thursday morning. The front desk receptionist looked puzzled when I told her I was looking for records from over 40 years ago. "Most of our physical records from that time were moved off-site or destroyed," she said. "But you might want to talk to someone who was actually here back then." That's how I met Mrs. Agnes Whitaker, a retired nurse who still volunteered in the hospital library. Her back was bent with age, but her eyes were sharp. I showed her the photo. Her face froze. She didn't blink. "You know her?" I asked softly. She nodded. That's Clara Vaughan. She was a maternity nurse here in the early 80s. Left the job under strange circumstances. What kind of circumstances? She disappeared one day, just stopped showing up. Rumor was she got mixed up in something illegal. But no one ever proved anything. My hands went cold. Do you know where she is now? Agnes hesitated. Last I heard, she was living in a trailer park just outside Harrisburg, alone, keeps to herself. She scribbled down an address. My heart was pounding. Before I left, she put a hand on mine. Honey, if you go see her, be careful. Clara didn't just vanish. People were scared of her. They said she knew things about babies that were never supposed to be born where they were. That night, I drove straight to the trailer park. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at a small run-down trailer with a broken porch light. Finally, I gathered my courage, got out, and knocked. No answer. I knocked again. The door opened just a crack. And there she was, 40 years older but unmistakable. The same eyes, the same silence. She looked at me like she'd been expecting me all along. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. You found me, that means it's time. She opened the door wider and motioned for me to come in without saying another word. The trailer smelled of old fabric and mothballs. A single lamp flickered on a dusty table, and an oxygen tank sat beside her recliner. I didn't think I'd ever have to see you again, she said as she sat down slowly. But here you are. I stood, hands trembling. Who am I? Clara looked at me for a long time, then reached for a drawer and pulled out a thin, yellowed folder. Inside were documents, medical charts, birth records, even a photo of 2 newborns, side by side in bassinets. You were born on July 16th, 1983, but you didn't go home with the woman who gave birth to you, she said. You were switched. The room felt like it was closing in. Why? I asked, barely above a whisper. Clara's voice cracked. Your mother, your real mother, was a poor teenager. She was alone, no insurance, no family support. And the other woman, she was connected. Her baby didn't make it. She offered money, a lot of it. I covered my mouth. So they paid to steal me. Clara nodded slowly. It wasn't right. But it happened more than people think. Quietly. Especially back then. No one questioned the hospital. Not when the mothers left smiling with a baby in their arms. I felt like I was going to be sick. Do you know her name? I asked. My real mother. Clara reached into the folder and handed me a paper. Her name was Elena Ross. She lived in Ohio. She tried to fight it at first. But they told her if she made trouble, she'd never see her baby again. And that people like her didn't deserve a second chance. My knees buckled. I sat down across from Clara, unable to breathe. She asked me to give you this, Clara added, passing me a sealed envelope. She came back to the hospital one last time after the switch. I never opened it, figured one day, if the truth ever came out. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in shaky cursive. To my baby girl. I named you Hope. But they gave you another name, and I was forced to let it go. I pray you grew up happy and safe. I think of you every single day. I'm still waiting if you ever come find me. My tears dropped onto the paper. My whole life had just been rewritten in one moment. I left Clara's trailer with the letter clutched to my chest and a single address written on the back. Ohio. A place I had never been, but suddenly felt like a missing piece of me was waiting there. And just like that, I wasn't who I thought I was anymore. I was Hope. I didn't go home right away. I needed time, space, air. For 2 days, I sat in a cheap motel room, reading and rereading Elena's letter. I Googled her, found a tiny bakery in Dayton, Ohio, with a woman by the same name listed as owner. Every time I tried to call the number, my hands went numb. But before I could face her, I needed to face them. I drove back home late Sunday night. My mother, no, the woman who raised me, was in the kitchen, folding dish towels like nothing had changed. I stood in the doorway, holding the folder from Clara in one hand and Elena's letter in the other. I know everything, I said. She didn't look up. Then I guess you came here to scream at me. No, I came here to ask why. She finally looked up. Her eyes were tired, older than before. Because I lost a baby, and I couldn't lose another. You did lose another, you lost me. She stood still, not denying it, not apologizing. I thought maybe it was all Clara's doing, I continued. I thought maybe you were just caught in it. But you paid her, you stole me, and you let my real mother believe I was gone forever. She would have raised you in a trailer with nothing, she said coldly. We gave you a future. No, I snapped. You gave yourself a replacement. The room was dead silent. My father walked in at that moment, hearing the last line. He looked at me, then at her. Did you tell her? My mouth dropped open. You knew too. He ran a hand over his face. I didn't know everything at first. Your mum told me years later. Said it was done. Couldn't be undone. She begged me to leave it alone. And you just did. He looked away. I felt the fury bubbling up inside me. All those years, all those birthday cards, all those moments when I asked why I didn't look like anyone. You knew. You both knew. My mother stepped forward. We loved you. I took a step back. No. You loved the lie you built. You loved the idea of me, but you never loved me enough to tell me the truth. I turned and walked toward the door. You're still our daughter, my father said softly behind me. I paused, one hand on the knob. No, I'm someone else's daughter, and she's been waiting for me for 40 years. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I hadn't planned on seeing her. I was halfway out of town when I got a text from my sister. I heard, please come talk to me before you disappear. I almost ignored it, but something inside me whispered that if I didn't face her now, I'd carry that silence forever. So I pulled into her driveway, heart pounding harder than it had when I confronted our parents. She opened the door before I could knock. You look like hell, she said, forcing a weak smile. I stepped in without answering. The house smelled like cinnamon. She always baked when she was nervous. A tray of untouched cookies sat on the counter. She poured 2 cups of coffee, handed me one, then sat down across from me. How long have you known? I asked flat out. She flinched. Since I was 16. I blinked. 16? She nodded, staring down into her cup. I overheard Mum and Dad fighting about it. I didn't believe it at first. But then I started noticing things. The missing paperwork, the way Mom avoided questions about your birth. I even found an old hospital bill with someone else's name on it. And you never told me? Her eyes filled with tears. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But Mom begged me not to. She said it would destroy you. She made me promise, told me that keeping the family together was more important. I laughed bitterly. So you lied to protect the lie. You stood next to me at my wedding. You helped name my kids, knowing the truth. She covered her mouth and started crying. You're my sister, in every way that matters. No, I said, standing up. You're her daughter. I'm just the stand-in. She grabbed my wrist. Please, don't say that. You're not just some accident. I love you. I pulled away. You love the version of me that fit into the story. But now that the truth is out, what am I to you? She was silent. Then she whispered, someone I don't want to lose. I almost broke. Almost. But there were too many cracks already. You already lost me, I said quietly, the moment you chose comfort over truth. As I turned to leave, she called after me. She used to send letters. I stopped in the doorway. Elena, she said, wiping her tears, your real Mom. She sent letters here, birthday cards, every year. I found them once in Mom's closet. She never let you see them. My chest caved in. How many? 17. I closed my eyes. 17 birthdays, 17 chances. 17 silent cries from the woman who never stopped waiting for me. And my so-called family had hidden them all. I left my sister's house with a name burning in my mind. Clara Vaughan. And a rage I couldn't contain. 17 letters. 17 years. My mother had hidden them like secrets in a graveyard. But how had Clara gotten away with it? How had a baby-swapping nurse kept her job long enough to change my life? I needed answers no one wanted to give me, so I went back to St. Matthew's Hospital, this time with a mission. The hospital administrator tried to turn me away, citing privacy policies and no record retention beyond 30 years. But I knew better now. Bureaucracy wasn't just red tape, it was camouflage. I waited until after hours, then followed a janitor into the basement archive. The smell of mold and old paper hit me like a wave. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, no real organization, just dates, faded labels, and neglect. I searched for hours. And then I found it. A water-stained box marked 1983 Maternity Delivery Internal Review. Inside were faded medical logs, disciplinary reports, and a sealed envelope labeled Confidential, Staff Investigation, Clara Vaughan. My hand shook as I opened it. The report described multiple irregularities in Clara's patient logs. Babies marked as discharged hours before paperwork was finalized. Mothers complaining their babies looked different than they remembered. One file even noted a formal complaint filed by a patient named Elena Ross, claiming her child had been taken and replaced. The investigation had been closed due to lack of evidence. Clara had been asked to resign, quietly. No police, no media. Just silence, wrapped in administrative language. I kept reading. There were 3 other complaints, all young, poor, unwed mothers. All dismissed, all mysteriously untraceable afterward. It wasn't just me. This was a pattern. A quiet clinical operation designed to place unwanted children into better homes. Homes that could pay. My stomach turned. This wasn't negligence. This was theft. And my parents, people I had trusted, had been part of it. I took photos of everything. I needed proof, not just for myself, but for the others. If they were out there, I had to find them. Because if Elena Ross had fought this long, alone, maybe there were others still waiting. Others who didn't even know they were stolen. Before I left, I slipped the files back into the box. But not before pulling one last item from the bottom. A small torn hospital bracelet. Faded ink. My birth date. But a name I had never seen before. Hope Ross. That was me. That was who I had always been. And now I was ready to become her again. I sat in my car outside the bakery in Dayton, Ohio, clutching a manila folder full of truths that could burn everything down. Inside were photos of hospital records, reports of cover-ups, proof of the stolen children. My own life, shattered, documented, and finally, understood. But what was I going to do with it? I could call the news, file a lawsuit, shatter the name my family had built. And part of me, an angry, broken part, wanted to. But I also knew what I really needed first. I walked into the bakery. The smell of fresh bread and cinnamon filled the air. A woman stood behind the counter, her grey-streaked hair tied back, flour dusting her apron. She looked up and froze. Her eyes, they were my eyes. She dropped the tray in her hands. Hope? That one word broke me. I nodded. She stepped out from behind the counter, like she was in a dream, hands trembling, tears already pouring down her face. I thought maybe it was too late. I didn't speak. I just walked to her, and we stood there, holding each other, 2 strangers stitched together by blood and stolen time. She whispered, "You look just like your grandmother. I used to dream about your face. I got close once, almost saw you. But they told me you were better off." "They lied to both of us," I said. We sat in the tiny break room, 2 cups of coffee between us, and I told her everything. About Clara, about my parents, about the letters they'd hidden, about how I had lived a life full of love, but laced with lies. And when I asked her if she had ever stopped searching, she pulled out a box of every birthday card she'd ever written, each one returned, unopened. "I kept sending them, even when they came back," she said, "just in case one day someone else opened one." I cried harder than I ever had before, for what we lost, for what we still had. The next morning, I stood on the front porch of my childhood home. My adoptive parents opened the door, their faces drawn. I didn't yell. I didn't hand them the folder. I just said, "This is Elena, my mother. I invited her for dinner." Silence. Then my father stepped back and nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't justice, but it was a start. And for the first time in my life, both sides of me, the one raised by lies and the one born from truth, were finally in the same room. I always believed family was about blood. Then I believed it was about love. Now I know it's about truth. The truth ripped everything apart. But in doing so, it gave me something I never knew I was missing, the whole picture of who I am. There are still nights I wake up wondering what my life would have been like if that DNA test had never come. Would I still be smiling in family photos, not knowing I was never meant to be there? Would I still call someone Mom who chose silence over honesty? But then I think of Elena, how she trembled when she hugged me, how she remembered every birthday, how she never gave up. And I realize I wasn't lost. I was waiting to be found. I didn't burn my old life down. I brought the truth into it. I let it sit at the dinner table. I let it speak. And somehow the people who raised me, they stayed. Some lies destroy families. But sometimes the truth, even the ugliest kind, gives you a second chance to rebuild one. Not perfect, not easy, but finally real.